Namaskar, Adab, Sat Shri Akal. A very warm welcome, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, evening, and almost good night to a lot of you who are in India or in Asia region. This is a very special one because I really wanted to do it with the right kind of people. बहुत सारी conspiracies, बहुत सारे discussions, analysis, reviews चल रहे हैं about this Hindenburg report that has come out on the 24th. और जब से ये रिपोर्ट आई है एक खलबली सी मची हुई है and everybody is putting out their own narratives, their own side of the story. And I don't know personally, what to believe, what not to believe. Looking at the entire report, which is on the website itself, Hindenburg की website पे, I really, like, my mind went ballistic. मुझे तो समझ नहीं आ रहा, and I really want someone who can maybe narrate it to me, explain it to me, and not only me, people like me, people maybe who are more into the financial domain, or generally for a common man who might not be aware of what or where the impact might be for them. So I really am glad and happy that, as usual, someone who I really adore, someone who has been on this platform multiple times, Colonel RDX connected me or referred me to someone who has spoken, written about this in a very, very simple manner. So I thought it'll be great. And, as luck might be on my side, he was available right away. So I am really glad to have CA Kanan Bahl. That's how he's called. वैसे तो Kanan नाम है. And he is someone who is not only a qualified CA, but also someone who's worked with companies like KPMG, with PricewaterhouseCoopers and whatnot. And he's also had a stint in his own, starting his own startup as well, Learn Personal Finance. And also he's an expert at Economic Time, Markets Live platform, guest speakers at multiple universities and whatnot. And right now, what he does is he's known as the growth consultant for a lot of fintechs. And also, I'm happy to know that he's also a tough word for me to pronounce, but I'll try my best. Finfluencers. ये influencer वो जो financial domain में, fintech में, they are able to influence, and rightly so, because this guy has been influencing, or at least got people like me towards his handles, towards his some of the streams or sessions, and understand it a little better. So without wasting any more time, I'm going to get both the guests on the screen. One who will have a geopolitical impact or a review around this particular report, and on the other hand, somebody who will try to make us understand the granularity or the specifics of this report. So welcome to Kanan and Colonel Rohit Dev. Welcome both
Jai
of
Hind.
you. Jai Hind.
Hi, namaskar everyone. Sat Sri Akal, Jai Hind. Thanks, Varun. Thanks for having me here. Hi, Colonel Rohit. How are you doing?
All well. Jai Hind.
It's definitely my pleasure, Kanan, and I'm glad you could take out time. It's 12 midnight, sitting in your I don't know, office or home, and doing this for us. It's really I'm really grateful. So thank you, and I know you'll be busy from tomorrow again with all the news around this. What is it? The What is coming out tomorrow again?
Budget.
Budget, sorry, yeah. Around the budget that's coming in tomorrow, so you'll be busy there. So I'm glad we'll do this session, and there'll be a lot of clarity around this report. So let's jump right into it. Kanan, before I take Colonel, why don't you tell us a little bit or everything about this report, how and what it is, how it will impact the country, how it can impact us, and of course how it's going to impact the overall financial sector.
Yeah, so basically, Hindenburg Research is an American research house, which is also, and calls itself an activist short seller. So I think, that come up with 4 or 5 more researchers like this in the past. With I think one of the name was Nicola. That is one. So now they have come up with a research report on Adani Group of companies, and it's a very common name in Indian households, and it has been really astounding as to how they grew their shareholders wealth in the last few years by as much as 1,000%, right? So what they did was they came up with a detailed report and they asked them 88 questions around, including their auditor, around including their, accounting practices, account including some of their, past cases that have been lodged against the promoter group people as well, right? So they came up with those irregularities. They said that they have taken 2 years to research on that. However, as I could read the report, so most of those things, had already been covered by a notable newspaper in India, that is the Morning Context. Like, in fact, the auditor issue was raised, I guess, in October 22, and they had raised all these issues in the past also. So there's an activist journalist as well in India. Her name is Miss Sucheta Dalal. So she has also, highlighted these issues on a no-name basis in 2021. But the thing is, since they're saying that they took 2 years to, find all these things, I think they took 2 years to collate all that information, probably, and then come up with this issue. And we can definitely discuss all these things in detail as to what are these issues, how can they concern the country, and if at all, if they're true, right? And
Sure.
let's just like, this is the induction basically of the issue. I hope it clarifies. Just in case it doesn't, please let me know. If there's anyone in the chat section also, please let me know.
Yes, I think most of the comments and most of the questions that came in, especially on Twitter as well as on DMs, was, ask him very clearly. First question was, there are so many questions, like you said, 88 or 80 odd questions put in there. But on a high level, is this like a personal or some kind of an attack on India's economy, or India's businessman, to show India in a bad light? Or does this the any of those questions listed have a valid concern or valid thing that really we all should be worried about?
So I would say, like, so the answer lies somewhere between these two questions. I think we shouldn't be, plugging any kind of this sentiment like India anti-India, because see, Enron has happened, WorldCom has happened. Did anyone say that, it's anti-US or something like that? Similarly, we know Satyam, but that's not something looked upon as a bad thing for India, because these events have happened in the US as well. So
Right.
accounting irregularities and, these kind of frauds, if they actually exist in this group also, so this should not be equated with an attack on India, right? Because our own journalists have been doing this, right? So if there's something wrong, definitely someone should report it, and I don't think so this should be equated with some, like, an attack on India. Yes, and if you're saying that this is something that needs to be investigated or something like that, but as I said, as I told you already, these things have already been highlighted in the past. They have been, blown out of proportion because of the things that Hindenburg has done in the past with some other shares like Nikola and all those things as well. That's where my opinion lies, right? So it's neither on extreme left side or extreme right side. It's somewhere in the middle, as you asked.
Got it. Got it. So why don't you now, since we've already kind of warmed up a little bit, why don't you tell us, some of the key takeaways from this report, and some good, bad, ugly points that everybody should be aware of.
So the first point that there are many points, I would say. So first point is that Adani is over leveraged, right? So that is what this report claims and tells how the debt equity ratio looks like, and how the company has never reported free cash flows and all those things. So we
Mhm.
need to understand that this is an infrastructure business. There can be some kind of over leverage, or under leverage, or something of that level kind of thing, like in between companies. So, since India is a growing economy, and government has, the ability to
Looks like we have some internet issues. So,
Indian
Kanan,
government
you're
too
frozen.
close to that, but somewhere between 50 and
He's
$100.
back.
And
Yeah.
yeah, am I back now?
Yes, you're back
Yes.
now.
The budget 21, the Indian government allocated around, say, I'm giving a rough figure only, around 65 billion US dollars. And in the budget 22, the government allocated around $125 billion to the infrastructure sector. So this clearly shows that the Indian budget, the Indian economy is on a growing trajectory, and for any economy to grow, we need a very robust infrastructure, right? So of course, India is a growing economy, and this is a very robust group. It has shown the executional capabilities. So I think it would to say so that it would be very mature to say that it's very over leveraged. Of course, some organizations have raised this issue in the past again, and I can't clearly recall the name, but there has been a report by some other foreign institution around this as well, that Adani Group is over leveraged, and it hammered the stock by around 5% or so back when it came as well. So yeah, these all are the things. This is the first issue. Second is that it's a family run business, right? So Vinod Adani, I guess he's the elder brother of Mr. Gautam Adani, who's the chairman of this group.
Right.
And then they talk about their son, they talk about their younger brother of Mr. Gautam Adani. Then he talks about his what do we say, his brother-in-law, and all the people who are there involved in the group. We need to understand this thing. So what the US doesn't understand about India is that in India, a family run business does really well. So if you talk about Mr. Rashni Grover's book Doglapan as well, so in fact in that book also he says that India is different from US. There, people are, generally set independent after the age of 18. Here, we live in joint families for a very long time. So, it is not right to compare that it's a family run business or something like that, because there have been very, very successful family run businesses in the past as well. And to say so, Reliance Industries is a very good example for that matter, right? And there are many other family run businesses like the Birla House as well, or if you talk about the Tatas, they have been passing on the legacy like anything, right? So it is, I would say, a little unfair on the report's part to say that it's a family run business and accuse them of poor corporate governance standards on account of this. That's slightly unfair. And if I have to talk about the cases that have been there on Mr. Gautam Adani's relatives, the younger brother, the elder brother, and all those things, so I think they have already been exonerated of all those charges. So if someone has been exonerated of those charges, then I don't think so there's a very big issue about it to consider all those things. Then comes about round tripping of funds to artificially inflate the share prices, and then dealing with stock manipulators who have been, you know, in the past, who have been accused of stock manipulation for their book running issue and all those things. So yeah, if we talk about, like, there are few FIIs who hold shares of Adani Group companies which have been, accused of basically rigging the share prices and routing money through various jurisdictions and all those things. So this is something I believe that this is something that can that can be maybe looked into. But if you talk about other issues, like they say that the Indian listed entity Adani Enterprises paid a sum of around $100 million. That's 750 crores in Indian rupee terms, and that's a huge sum to an Australian entity. So the reply that Adani Group gave on this issue was that it's a transaction that has happened at arm's length, because they had to pay for some terminals out there in Australia. And since the auditors have also signed off, so ideally we should be, like, we can rely on this thing being at arm's length price. And another very common issue which has, concerned my particular community, that is the CA community as well, is that the auditors are as young as 23, 24 when they were signing off balance sheets. So I have to tell you this thing, that I've worked for Big Fours for the last I've worked for them for about 5 years, and I know how robust the policies are for auditing and all those things, at least in Big Fours, right? Of course, they must be very solid in the other firms as well, but they are like hell bent on reporting what is actually right, and they don't succumb to pressure at all, right?
Mm.
So that is the thing. But if you talk about this particular company, so it's the auditing firm that is there for the flagship company Adani Enterprises Limited. It's a relatively smaller firm, and the auditors signing off are as young as 23, 24. So of
Correct.
course, from my experience of working with these auditors, I can say that a company of this magnitude definitely requires people who have solid experience, because I know that at 23, 24, like I can still call myself a person with mediocre intelligence. If I have to look at people who were extremely intelligent as well, there were partners who could, understand whatever issues were there in the findings that they had, the younger CAs and the articles, right? So I've worked with all of them and closely seen their style of working and everything. So there's something or the other that the partner finds out, and that's how it impacts the audit quality in a very positive manner. But if you look at other companies of the Adani Group companies, like Adani Enterprises Limited is primarily the holding company. Like it's basically the uh, you can say the incubator company for all other Adani companies. So if you look at other Adani Group entity companies, they're already audited by Big Fours. Now to change the auditors per se, like of course there's a relationship that the companies maintain with the auditors, and when the company was very small, then these auditors would have probably also been with them in some or the other capacity, right? So they might have to that's basically their way of giving back, that when they have grown they have not asked them to go ahead, like leave them, right? So if you look at other Adani Group entities, they are already being audited by Big Fours, right? So that is a positive thing to say. And if you talk about this particular group company, even if they were to rotate them whenever their rotation was due, now this thing won't take place, I think, because they can take the extension for another 5 years, because now if they change, then it will raise eyeballs
Correct.
in front of the world that Adani Group changed the auditors
Yep.
after Hindenburg raised this issue, right? So this might not happen at all. So yeah, this is my understanding of the issue, and this is my opinion on everything that's happening. Happy
Got
to
it.
hear comments, happy to hear your
Sure.
views, and with all
Yep.
due respect to everyone, no offense, and most importantly, this is not an investment advice, and please just take it on a lighter note, just to understand the issue, nothing else.
Yeah. And actually, I should have also put a disclaimer before we started that anything being said here is not because of anybody's affiliation with any board, party, or country. As a matter of fact, this is a very neutral, honest review or analysis based on somebody's prior knowledge of certain issues, and it cannot be. And later on, don't even start trolling that these guys are pro particular person, agency, party, and whatnot. So this is all in that spirit that we ask honest candid questions and share the honest candid reviews as well. And I'm gonna even go to Colonel as well around that. But before I do that, of course, one question you brought, that question about such young auditors managing, I mean, if I look at the numbers, right, those boggle my mind. I mean, this is Adani Group. This is not like a pop or mom shop managing a budget of about say a few lakhs. And so, uh, to be very like fair, as a CA, and I'm gonna just be very blunt about it, as a chartered accountant, if you look at something like that, doesn't it kind of come to your mind that maybe there is something wrong, that why such young people have been given the task of managing such huge numbers? And if there is any issue, and anybody can make an issue. It's not that a 23, 24-year old might not actually make those mistakes which are maybe a 40, 45-year old might make, but still, based on experience, I mean, that's what the whole idea is. You hire somebody more experienced so that you cover all the bases. So doesn't it kind of come to your mind as, or if I don't say Kanan, let's say any chartered accountant's mind, that hiring somebody who's not that experienced might land us in trouble later on? So doesn't that kind of create an issue?
Yeah, so I'll just take up this question.
Sure.
So see, when we are like, if I look back, so it's been about 3.5 years ever since I qualified CA exams. So if I look back at the kind of rigorous training that we have to go through, and the kind of exams that we have to pass. It's extremely tough, and it's completely a torture. And someone who clears his exams at as young age as 22, 23 is definitely commendable, and this definitely shows their hard work and commitment to the profession. So I won't say the audit quality would be impacted to that level, because they might have been working at the same firm, and they might have been taking up audits as under their articleship assignments also. So I would say it's a little unfair to say that in as many words, that they are immature and all those things. Of course, the more experience, the better it is. But definitely, even a 24-year-old, 23-year-old, or chartered accountant can definitely do a very good task. But of course, more quality, much better. But the more experience, the better it is. Definitely, there's no, I don't think so anyone will deny to that thing. But of course, saying it in such harsh words might be a little unfair, because I know I have been through that journey, that it's very unfair to say that they can't do it at all. Of course, had they been replaced by some better experiences, then definitely it would have been much better. But let's just not say that and write them off.
Sure, sure, sure. All right, and one question which was common question by asked by a couple of people. They call it the bailout that has happened today in a way of some sorts, right? That some of our industrialists, Reliance and whatnot, have put in their money as well as investors. So, what is your take on that impact of Reliance and other business bailing out the FPO and its impact on investors' psyche?
Okay, so yeah, I can see. So I'm just checking the chat box only from my
Okay,
phone.
okay,
Um See, of course, anyone like you and me won't, if at all we have to invest in Adani Enterprises. And again, a disclosure: I don't have any investment in either Adani Group shares or Reliance Group shares, or in fact even any of the companies that have invested as far now, right? So to invest, so for example, if the issue price is 3,200, close to 3,200, why will you or I buy through the FPO rather than the open market, where the price is around 29.50, right? So of course it was very obvious that the retail is not going to do that, right? And if we talk about the top corporates that have uh, invested their money in the FPO, so at the top level their partnership might have been of a very good level. So I'm speaking from a very bottom of the pyramid kind of place. And to say so that I create content, right? Varun, you and I both create content. So so for tomorrow, for example, if tomorrow I have to launch a podcast, I'll ask you, yeah, how did you do this StreamYard thing? I can ask you which is a better platform, which is this and that thing. So will you mind helping me, Varun? I'm asking you.
yeah,
Will
of course.
you will help me, right?
I will. I don't know
Yes,
about
you will.
others, but I will. Yes.
Yes, definitely. So maybe I think at that level of the pyramid, there's this kind of, understanding that whenever shit hits the fan with any one of us, the other ones are gonna maybe help. That's definitely a possibility. Or there might have been some other things which, of course, we don't know. But my sense is that this is definitely one of those things. Otherwise, why will seven, eight big top corporates come together at the same time and help one person by buying shares, which in the first place they might not have wanted to, and in the second place they did that at a price that is 10% higher than the current market price.
Right. No, I think I also liked one of your tweets that you mentioned around that you should definitely have a good relationship with even your contemporaries or something like that, right? So
Exactly.
it's really important, and it was nice way of showing that it's really important to have good friends in the industry who could, I would not use the word bailout, but at least when in need, there is somebody who is kind of there around you. All right, now before I jump on to other questions, there are a few more. Let me just take Colonel as well and ask him, his perspective as to, when this news broke on 24th, what was that immediate reaction, and how have you seen that evolve over the past so many days?
Right. So, Varun, unlike a channelized financial thought of Karan, I will actually have a layman's thought and pointers to just think about first.
Okay.
And my first thought goes to this report, and bear me out, Bail, if I'm wrong. It somewhere says last few decades, right? So this report actually is summarizing their collation of data or inputs from whosoever they took, ex-employees or otherwise, and they're calling it a few decades. The moment you say that, let the political debate in India be silent, like Bahl also said. It's not about politics. It's not about pitching it India or beyond. It's more about one company being targeted by another company. Right or wrong, facts will emerge. So let's keep it that level, because when the time it says few decades, it goes into the Indian political system right across from the incorporation of this company, the enterprise in 1993. They actually came 3 4 years earlier as a partner company, and then grew into whatever the stock parameter. Coming to the second part of this report and the rebuttal which one has just glanced through, I think there are two or three things which people must understand. A, I'll start with the last because the last point is fresh in my mind. The so-called FPO bailout, 10% extra or whatever. I believe that there is a precise order book in terms of the business of this group, right? This is the group today in the country which has forayed into raising debt, creating assets, acquiring companies, right? So there was one tweet which is doing the round quite famously, that it is listing 12 taxpayers of India from top to bottom, starting with, I think, the Reliance Group and going to SBI and beyond, and LIC towards the bottom there. And they're questioning the tax paying capability of the Adani Group and where the money is going. So I think, to not realize how debt is being utilized and how taxation happens is an anomaly which is being, used. Second is these, comments which talk about a person's past or his family's past about taxation, evasion, whatever they're talking about, legal cases, and also that vital, kind of a, red herring to talk about a Chinese also linked to Mr. Adani or his group personally. Now, this is business. Without going into contours of facts, and why I'm saying it with a little bit of responsibility here is that the Hindenburg report does not lay out two things. A, or at whose behest as limited partners has this compilation of 2 years being done? What are the sources? Because I'm quite sure a company like Hindenburg will not have any deeper insights into functioning of even the finance of the Adani Group or any group in India. So if it is only based on public domain information, then let's go back to the previous year, where in September and October there were two more companies. There was a company which I think Fitch or whatever that name was, belonging to the credit ratings group, and they made a small claim about the same debt and over leveraged being this entire group, and then also the shares dropped quite drastically till the major firm was again consulted, and they made certain changes in two major groups, or the subsidiaries, the Adani Transmission and Power. And I believe, respectively, there was a course correction of EBITDA by about 1 to 2 million USD on transmission side, and the power side about 7 to 8 million USD. And then it became smooth. Similar thing happened in October 2022, when S&P Global also had the triple B minus grade being revised, and that being the lowest investment grade for any company to take on business. Another feature which we need to very carefully see is the same last 1 year, 1.5 year. India has pushed towards Atmanirbhar Bharat, and there are a few companies, including Tata's, Reliance, and Adani, who are not only looking at infrastructure but also critical spaces of defense and aerospace in India. And that is where there is in the backdrop of this report, there are certain certain items which raise hackles in a mind, that who could be the people who could do this kind of, if it's a factual part completely, one can understand. But if certain facts are just listed without evidence behind, or without a trace, let me draw your attention before I go further into this interest people may have in India, is to the Drafts King report also as well. Now, this is a US company dealing with sports, and the judge made two scathing remarks, and did not let this thing carry on against that particular sporting agency. Again, a Hindenburg report. As late as the clarification has come, I think last week or last to last week, worldwide, and two things it brought out. A, that what were the confidential sources who were utilized to generate such a report, when they tried to verify it legally, they didn't have a legal verification. So what I'm saying is that if you have, say, a few disgruntled employees, or you have somebody who wanted to say something and meant something else, not understanding and correlating the Indian laws and the Indian market vis-a-vis the understanding of a Hindenburg firm, I think that there can be a sort of a gap which is already there. The second is, I will explain to you better, Behel, the short seller concept. Now, when you go to the short seller mode, and you are basically an agency which has got a conflict of interest in generating the report, my questions are, why this company, why in India, why 5 7 days before the budget, and why in the last year of budget of this government of the day? Just keep the question flag to a side. I'm not trying to justify what Adani firm is doing or what wrong Hindenburg would have done. But what I'm saying is, a timing of this nature, when you have the last budget being presented by the government of the day before it goes into a general election next year, because next year it may not be able to do so in terms of whatever schemes or whatever is coming out. And then you go in the backdrop of these two specific companies, because they are profit making P&L based companies, Reliance and Adani in India. They are the largest rising conglomerates, to so to say. I'm not getting in the industrial part of the Tatas here, because they are a different league altogether. But these two companies, now tell me, hypothetically, if these 6 7 companies of Adani were separate companies, for example, there was a company called X Aerospace, B, into cements or something like that, and you know Wilmar or whatever, you create these companies separately. If these companies could leverage debt from the market, the quantum of debt requirement would have been the same, less or more than what Adani is doing today. So when you have an order book, you will get investment, you will be able to raise the debt. The part of over leveraging of debt is something which the Indian system has seen and heard for the last 2 to 3 years. So I don't find it to be something very new in what Hindenburg is saying. But what Hindenburg has done, which is maybe right or wrong, which law will prove, but just to throw riders and red herrings into the report, and then after the rebuttal coming back and saying that the Group has not spoken about the Chinese, not tried to justify the legal cases which we have listed out. I don't think so. That's the way the system works. And that is where I'm saying it is very important to understand that what has initiated them to say that they have collated information for 2 years. Then who are the partners behind who want to short sell the Adani, stocks in the market, because that will directly have a spiraling effect not only on the economy on the broader sense, but also on 2 or 3 primary investors like SBI, LIC, and others, which is the banking system and the insurance system also. So if you see the insurance side, there have been many companies, right from US to Europe and including China. We've been trying to bite this industry of ours. There are many countries which are miffed with the Atmanirbhar Bharat program, especially for infrastructure and defense. So if you actually catalog and shortlist, I mean, I'm not taking any names of any companies here, but I can just give you the broad sense. It is easier to map, and there has to be a legal outcome. A drafts king case can be fought in the US, and a judge can dismiss the case on those two broad grounds. I think there has to be a legal system in which the Adanis need to take on this Hindenburg report head on and get into the legal finality. I understand what Bell talked about, the chartered accountants being young. And I also go by the same view that young or old does not make this stock, because the entire financial system of the Adani Group, if you see, and I was reading, somewhere in the evening today, just correct me if I'm wrong again there, the CFO himself is not primarily an Indian, so it's the best stocks selected from somewhere in Australia is leading as a CFO. That's true for even the group of Air India, where they're taken a foreigner as the CEO. So I think these companies who come from homegrown private entities of individual families, they today have to imbibe the correct ESG norms which are globally acceptable. And when, like he said, that the newer companies are being vetted by the big four, in the real sense, that's the way forward. But to take any action correctively as a knee-jerk reaction should not be holding the group in high esteem or stead. It will not be holding even the country in good stead. So I think more than what we think about this report and the rebuttal of 413 pages to the 88 pages report is the essence of what is the motive of this report, and what and who are all involved to short sell the stocks of this particular company, because that's the game. It's a direct conflict of interest. Adani's rebuttal is not a conflict of interest. It's a rebuttal to some acquisitions being made, right or wrong, legal or not taken legally is their call. But the Hindenburg report has a conflict of interest. That's their job. That's how they earn money.
Yeah.
2017 incorporation, 5 years into this, four reports from whatever he mentioned, Nicola and the others, Clover and others. What have they achieved? And the first case which happened, as recent as now with the Draft King, it's a sporting agency, and there are two conditions which the judge has laid to dismiss the entire thing off. But in the bargain, I think they also lost 2.11% of their stakes initially when the report came through. So that is the way to look at it. And 46,000 crores is not a small amount by any means. Yes, to bounce back in the market, it calls for certain actions to be taken. They bounce back, they don't bounce back, they bounce back after a while, is something which will or may not happen. But that's my understanding, and we have to be a little more wise than taking everything at the face value, which is flashed on us. And my query is, what was the so big an interest of a US New York based research institute to even look at a Indian group? Has he looked at Amazon? Has he looked at the practices and the financial condition of Amazon? No. Has he looked at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation's things, what they do across the world? No. So what is this focus, and why is it only focused here? And I'm not saying it's incorrect, because at some point of time, theoretically, the short sellers can actually come up with something which is not known. It may enable a company across the world to refine itself, or the system or the market to attune itself better. Maybe there is an inflation of the stakes. It can all be true, but with a pinch of salt, because today I'm not convinced entirely, because I mean, I give you the reason first, upfront. The budget is on, the last budget of the government of the day, with high stakes of growth parameters. Today, after this report from 6.8, it has come down to a growth percentage of 6.1 by one more study internationally. So everybody is commenting on our growth and our economy. And today, I think it's not that we support Adani or not, or we go by the Hindenburg report or not. It's more by Hindenburg also has to come clean. While Adani may have rebutted in 413 pages, and this will go on probably legally now. But I think Hindenburg report should also be asked the questions that who are your partners, and please come up front so that we understand who has made this case against Indian giant today. And whatever has happened in the FPO, and people have stood by the group, Indian group, as Indians, or whether it is a case that yes, they understand business better than all of us put together, and they know what is the order book of the Adanis. Maybe by putting these shares, they will have their share of business also growing, because it's all mutual interest. Whether you take any sector of what Adani is stepping into, there are sectors in which Reliance and Tata's already are there. There are certain sectors in which Adani wants to step, where there is a mutual kind of a growth and a battle within India itself. So all contours are open. But I
Right.
find personally, if you ask me, from what I read and what I see, I think this report needs to be dealt with legally by the Adanis. It needs to be dealt with in terms of some kind of a legal framework, in which we also come to know that what was the partnership behind this report.
Yeah. Let me get Kanan's perspective. Yes, Kanan, you were about to say something.
Yeah, so as per my understanding, definitely Adani is going to challenge them in the court. I don't know whether it's going to be the Indian courts, whether it's going to be the US courts. And while they said that initially, like I think this report was released on 26th or the 27th.
Fourth,
I think it was
24th,
27th.
24th.
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 Yeah.
24th.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe it might have been on the 24th. Very well possible. So immediately when they had come up with a press release, I think it said that these are baseless allegations and we are gonna contest them in the court. We are basically they didn't say that. News started later on flowing
Yeah.
that they are exploring legal options, right? And to that, I guess Hindenburg replied that no, I think it was to the 413 pager report only that they
Yeah.
replied, saying that most welcome. Please contest us in the court. We'll ask for more documents around that. So I think a legal battle is here. Like after this FPO, now since they're done with the FPO successfully, congratulations to them. I think this is going to come. This is definitely going to come. The legal battle. Now let's see what happens. And my understanding is that. They are not supposed to comment on US listed stocks or something like that. Something is there. I was reading some commentary on Twitter only about from a very learned person that there's some case law that says that they can't do it and they're going to contest them legally against all those things. And as far as the timing is concerned, about the budget being together, the last budget of this government, I don't think so. We should overthink about it so much because do we see any opposition? Do we see any opposition? So I don't. I personally, I have this very strong opinion that let's not equate this with the government attack against the government or the country. Let's just equate it with the interest of that particular organization which has short sold those shares against that of Mr. Adani's, right? So let's have a fight between two of them only. Like
Yeah,
there's no like with all due respect, there's no need to drag India or the government over here. Like
perfect.
of course we don't draw the US government, right? We don't draw the US government, like whosoever was there when the WorldCom or the Enron scam happened, right? So we don't say that was an attack on Bush or an attack on Obama or whosoever was there at that particular tenure. So
Makes
or
sense.
the US for
Absolutely.
that matter itself. So I think it's a complete fight between Adani and the Hindenburg research report, and let's see what happens, what follows from here.
Perfect.
Just on the lighter side, Bell, after 10 hours, when the parliament is open and that red cloth book is opened, you know, you will find this name being talked about in the parliament tomorrow morning,
Yeah,
right?
probably because
That that
they're
that
gonna
that, that,
shout
that is how
talking.
mature our polity is, and that is why I was trying to bring this angle as well, because I personally believe that there are a lot of insiders from our country involved in generating hypothetical questions through this report. It will come out. If it goes legal, it will come out because they will have to come to the basis of the information finally. They also can't get away. All the financials of all the subsidiaries and the mother company are there on the internet. Pay 300 rupees, 700 rupees. That's the cost. It's no cost. So you can open the entire Adani spectrum for years on years, Reliance years on years, Tata's years on years. That's public knowledge. The problem is the accusations made in a flying scathing manner about legalities, Chinese connection, blah, blah, blah. And then after the rebuttal saying these questions are not answered, they are the main questions. I don't think so. The main questions are about finance. The main questions are not about connections and with whom the business is being done, if it's being done legally. So you'll come to know in days ahead that there were people from here who have made these preposterous kind of conjunctures and fed. And when they are called out, and that is what I'm saying, just wait for 10 more hours. Moment the floor opens, this word Adani will be heard tomorrow in the parliament. That's our immaturity of our polity. That's not the same in the US. While they may haggle over a case or otherwise, I don't find two US parties coming in and talking about a Raytheon deal happening worldwide, right? They know what Lockheed Martin does. They know how to get business for Airbus, whatever it takes. The system as a governance angle is pretty much involved. But in India, even after we have involved 2 decades back, we will throw muck at the current one to say, how are you doing it? So that's a beauty. And let me stick my neck out. 10 more hours, you'll hear this word tomorrow in the parliament.
Perfect.
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course, that's bound to happen. Like
that will definitely.
even if the intentions were pious, let's assume they
Yeah.
weren't also. That would
All
have
right.
happened, right? So that's very normal. But let's see, as you're saying, that names will come out, and of course, in the U.S. courts, like I was reading about this Elon Musk and the Twitter issue, they had to like Parag Gupta and all those people, they had to release their chats, and so the disclosure norms are so high over there that they have
Everything,
their
everything.
chats as well.
Hindenburg would have to say which journalist, which politician, which whom, which insider, which disgruntled ex-employee, who had given what facts, because they can't prove it on their own. They can't say we had a beyond
They
the
better name
Excel sheets
Pradip.
and the balance sheets. They have no other access, right? They
You
can't say we
one.
visited Adani over coffee and he spoke like this. It can't happen like that. So all the facts financially related will be corroborated. For the balance of the allegations, there have to be people and names being given by Hindenburg.
So the people who are listening to this podcast, and if you know any whistleblower who is, a part of this report, just send this video to them, and they better be, braced for this thing.
All right. Let me get back, to some of the logical questions. And why I'm saying logical is because, as an outsider, I was going through this whole report, right? Let's keep the personal aspect of, the family relation, blah blah blah, and all that stuff. But looking at the numbers, right? And as a CA, I really want to understand, what does that mean? I was reading through this. The listed seven companies of Adani Group are 85% overvalued, even if you ignore our investigation and take the company's financials at face value. So, looking at this, say for example, this one, Adani Green Energy, it's 815 times. Now, the industry average says, now I am not a statistician, I am not a CA, but if I look at this, my mouth is like open. If it is an industry average is 24, I can still say, maybe Adani Group or this green energy is doing way better than any other average industry. Maybe it'll do 100x. Maybe it can do 200x. On a, very, very skeptical, I'll say maybe it's doing 500x somehow, or something happening. 815 times. And, the implied downside, they're saying like if it goes down, 97% wiped off, right? So how does a common man understand this, whether it is actually possible to have like 831 times, 815 times and all that stuff? Is it possible, or what is the interpretation of this? How do you look at it?
Possible or not, it's there in front of us. Possible or not, it's there in front of us. And just to give that disclaimer, I am not invested in any Adani stock. Like, I've never been invested into, and of course, I wish I was 2 years back, and I exited 2 days back. I definitely wish that. And who doesn't, looking at in the hindsight? But definitely, like, the kind of rationale that Adani Group gives, right, and their advisors give, they say that look at the future numbers that are gonna come, right? So I won't say that I am the best person. If these numbers are to looked upon, of course, at the face of it, it looks definitely far more over than overvalued. But
Okay.
there's a side which they are also saying. They are also saying that this is something that we believe that the numbers are going to reflect in the future, and there's still value at this price. Then I think I'm not the best person to answer this question. But
Okay.
if we are looking into just
See,
any other, yeah,
I am also not the best, but I'll make an attempt, and why I'll talk about this green sector, because one has been involved, one has seen the
That's why I
government
picked it up first.
promises, you have seen
Yeah.
the hydrogen part and how, including things like 400 crores for R&D have been allocated, right? When you see the green sector, it was nothing a few years back. So the companies were incorporated at the right time when they were doing a little bit of solar and beyond only. Those leveled out. But today, the order book of these bigger companies, because they have the bandwidth for all kind of foreign connections to get technology in today, even in the solar field. So I am privy to a lot of cases where these giants have taken the mega contracts, right? So order book has gone up, the top line has gone up, and they have been able to then give it in parts to other subcontractors to get the things done in India. That's been a norm. So when you see the subcontractor, they would grow also at 100 or 200. I have seen a company, run in solar sector by a Fauji, and he has made that kind of a killing in the last 3 years, right? So I'm not pretty alarmed, because Adani and Reliance both have also pledged a lot of money. They recently announced about 3,500 crores, I think Reliance Group, and similar was Adani. They both are going into green hydrogen. They are getting forward orders for the solar part, offshore wind contracts with the British firms. So I think what Bahl is mentioning is making sense, because their future order book is also intact. So I think that is giving them the ability to leverage more, get more debt, and also their stocks are looking much more promising in terms of conversion. So that is my understanding of this sector. Similar could be the growth story for the defense and aerospace sector. Adani recently won even that small arms part, right? So you will find that these growths will take place. So I'm not shocked to see it because I don't actually know what 800 and difference between 800 times and 600 times means actually. But if is it feasible, the niche sunrise sectors like these, I think it is feasible because if I see where I was and I was dealing with bioenergy sector, I can see a growth happening in that sector from an investment point of view, nearly about 400, 500 times if you play your cards well. So I don't think so that should be looked at it with so much of alarm otherwise.
Okay, I leave it at that. Based on the other question, I will have again. I don't know if you'll be the expert on that as well, Kanan, but based because you've been giving this disclaimer, which I've been hearing that you're not invested and you're not part of this, but looking at this, the price gain year on year, and they're giving examples as well. I mean, they're quoting numbers. I hope these numbers are correct, and if they're presenting a report, I'm sure they have looked into the report, the data before they've put it here. But
I think it's fine. I think these numbers must be fine. Like
correct,
if they would
but
have been wrong, then people would have really called out for. So let's assume they're fine, and I think they are
correct.
actually.
Okay. Now, if those are correct, these numbers are correct. Have you seen? Let's for example, ignore Adani here. Can for any other such company of this size, do these numbers look okay as well? Like 1,398% gain in a period of 3 years,
Well, if I have to talk
2,121%.
Yeah, so if I have to talk about Tesla, then these numbers were way too high, right? More than 2000% within a year, almost a year, if I'm not wrong. Then, I read a person from the West saying that where does an asset class grows by more than 1000% in a year? It's only in India. I said, man, don't equate this thing with India. Just look at Tesla, right? So Tesla has grown at a much faster pace in a shorter period of time than Adani Enterprises share, right?
Yeah,
So let's not just one thing again. Let's not just say that it happens only in India. It happens in every part of the every part of the world that a particular stock goes up by 1000% or something like that. Of course, like if we look at the valuation numbers or if we look at the gain numbers, these are not normal numbers that the stock market gives. And Adani group of companies were the darlings of stock market, definitely. But to say so that it's impossible, like that's not something true.
got it, got it. And also one of this, I did not understand that much, but what is the key man risk? And Adani being the CEO or the main director of more than five companies, can you talk a little bit about this if you know, or if you can signify what is that key man risk? That I read somewhere that if something was to happen to him, then these companies would like completely go down the drain or something like that. And so what is this key man risk that they're talking about in this report?
Like this is absurd. Like if you look at the top para, the chairman and founder of Adani Group is Gautam Adani, a former school dropout turned diamonds and plastic trader. I mean, like this is really orthodox to say. Like till
Exactly.
now, till
Yeah,
now, I was still having some kind of a corner for this particular research firm. I didn't read the entire 88 page report. Of course, I read the summary and I read it in between.
yeah,
But this is insane if they're saying this thing. So, if I have to talk about school dropouts or college dropouts, even Mark Zuckerberg is a college dropout. Bill Gates
yeah,
is a college dropout.
correct,
Steve Jobs, who left the most valuable company in the world
right,
while he was dying. Of course, that might not have been the case back at that time, but a company to have been valued at $3 billion came out from a person who didn't go to college, right?
correct,
So this
correct.
is a very absurd, and this happens in their own country. I don't know why they're saying this thing. And
Yeah,
these kind of comments are absolutely very personal, uncalled for, and not required. Like if they would have spoken just about the fundamentals, about the challenges, that would have been fine. But this is steeping down to a newer low,
yeah,
I would say. This is very
In
unfortunate.
fact, Varun,
yeah,
you know, the layman understanding should be, if you are a person who's owning a sweet shop in Ludhiana, right,
yeah,
and you are the chap who's running the business and making the sweet also, and if you conk off tomorrow, then you are the key man. Tell me, by any stretch of imagination, these conglomerates are structured like that.
No.
Are they running on one person? No, one person has maximum stakes, but there are people employed in every department who are running the show. So it
Correct.
doesn't happen like that. And just coming to the issue of the growth stock companies, because Bailji was trying to elucidate. I just went on the net. Let me tell you the three-year sales growth companies, the ones which earn more than the share of the market averages. And these are the 10 listed in US today. Tesla, Shopify, Etsy, Mercado, Netflix, Amazon, Meta, Salesforce, Alphabet, right? So what are we talking about? And the least growth there is 22% and goes up to as high as 63% on an annualized basis.
Right.
So
Now, the
so
point was,
let's
now you brought the data point as well, right? That's what I was asking, right? So you're saying the highest was about 63%, right?
right. These are the growth companies for the
Correct.
3-year sales growth in the US, and they're
Correct.
sector specific. They are not
Correct.
they are not a conglomerate which has got 8 ships floating and each in different dimension. And out of
Right.
that, 4 or 5 are absolutely sunrise sectors just growing now.
Yeah. I'm surprised to hear Tesla not more than 100%, but that was a little low for Tesla. Tesla, I thought, would have crossed all the limits, but we are looking at, even for a company like Adani, 1398, almost 1400% versus the 60 some percent in India, right? So that's the point I was trying to do, kind of, ask Kanan that, yeah, please go ahead, Kanan. You say.
So there are outliers in every country. Adani is the outlier of India.
Perfect.
Tesla is the outlier of US.
That's a good answer.
So there are just
Yeah.
a few examples, right? A very few, like 1 in 5,000 examples. So Adani is that example, simple. So if something's happening in Tesla, something's happening in Adani. So
Got it.
yeah, that way.
So I'll ask one more question from my perspective, and then I'm gonna take these questions in the comment section. Now the last one is, I looked at this. I tried to understand this flow diagram that they've created. How Vinod Adani, settler and director of many offshore entities. Now this is another thing which I was not sure. The offshore companies that they're talking about, some Mauritius based, six, seven, or eight, companies, and the word they put it there was shell companies. So these companies don't even have any employees. These companies don't even have an office, no online presence, no LinkedIn's, no employees, nothing. And so the money coming to those Mauritius-based companies, and that money coming back towards the group which are listed companies. How can you, like, how can, I don't know. I mean, if you can explain this workflow, and is it right, wrong, legal, ethical, is a separate question then.
Okay, so basically, what he's saying is what I can understand is that Vinod Adani, who is said to be a settler, and so settler is something I think they are using from their own dictionary, director of many offshore entities. So, yeah, this is something like, just as I said, that this is something that can be better explained about, right? So, this is something where communication can be much better. That, like, why is this happening? Because I don't understand these structures so well, because the structures that I've worked on. So I worked in M&A tax of 5 years of Big Four experience. So basically, Mauritian entities are created to save taxes, right? So for
Okay.
example, if tomorrow Adani Group has to sell some shares, right? So if they do it with a person in India, so for example, if Mr. Gautam Adani holds shares in Adani Enterprises, then he'll attract a tax rate of around 28%, inclusive of all surcharge and cess on long-term capital gains. That is 20% plus whatever surcharge that's there. I think it's 15% maximum for listed shares. Correct me if I'm wrong. So that is, so yeah, I went a little wrong there. It's not 28%. It must be somewhere around, I would say 24, 25%, including all the surcharges and tax. But if we talk about Mauritius, and if they're holding, shares before 31st March 2018, then that's tax free. So that's a tax, saving kind of thing that these companies do. But if there's so many companies and money is, flowing from here, so what could have happened that private and offshore trusts, it okay, like this part, the last part, the last arrow, that Adani Group listed companies ultimately send money in the Adani family private offshore trusts and companies. This is something I couldn't understand, but yes, these things could have been legitimate also to an extent, and to the extent, like, of course, I am someone who's worked in M&A also, so it's tough for me to fathom as well. So this is something where clarification can come on.
Got it. Okay. All right. So let me go back to some of the other questions in the chat as well. I want to be cognizant of the time. Uh, Let me start from the top. Yeah, I don't think this is a question, that maybe even Kanan or Colonel can answer, but, this is somebody asking, is there any proof that Ambani invested, because this news is only reported by CNBC? I mean, I don't know, Kanan or Colonel, anybody wants to answer that? Or
Sorry,
This is a
what?
very conjectural kind of a statement. I mean,
yeah, nobody can actually do that.
yeah,
Okay.
no, won't be the case actually.
Yeah. Sole intention of Hindenburg is to disrupt the FPO. Do you guys feel that? Any of you?
No, I
Yes.
don't think so.
So why? Because I'll say why. Because disrupt the FPO, as in they found that timing right. वरना एकदम FPO का time क्यों आता? Right. So they wanted to trouble. They wanted them to feel the jitters. And of course, वरना ये 5 दिन पहले या 5 दिन बाद भी निकाल सकते थे ना?
No. I think the FP was just incidental, Bell. It just happened because it was not announced 2 years back. So it's been something which I'm saying, with a lot of caution, is to do with this last budget, because that's my gut feeling. I mean, now less than about 10 hours to go, so we'll see tomorrow.
Sure. All right. I will. It's good that we have two different perspectives, and that's what this conversation was about. Why Adani's
No,
management did.
we have same perspective. He has a better perspective on the financial part. I'm
Right.
I'm just playing the devil's advocate because I know how devils work in
Perfect.
our country, right? And I
Fine.
want the devils now to be exposed. Good that this report came, and some legal platform, Hindenburg will have to give those names, which is good for this country.
Got it.
That's a
Good.
bonus.
Perfect. Why Adani's
Awesome.
management
Good
didn't
guys.
alter the FPS schedule? Were they confident enough that the other giants would leap into the FPO to failure? All right. Kanan, you first.
Probably if we look back at the dots, then yes. But of course, it would not have been as simple. And arranging 20,000 crores is no joke.
True. I was chatting with someone, and that person, almost on the similar lines, uh, said, and jokingly, okay, don't troll me, guys, after this, but I'm gonna just state what the chat was about. The person said, that looking at how things were, people from Adani's group and even Gautam Adani might have called, his friends, Reliance, and everybody, that at this point of time, just do this, and I'll kind of take care of it later. This is how, another rumor or whatever you want to say. That's how things are floating around, in the news market as well. I'm just sharing it. Colonel, what's your take on that?
How can I say I'm not a Rani?
Colonel,
I'm not a
sorry.
Rani.
No,
Okay,
no, Colonel, I'm asking the question that, it's
See,
Colonel and Colonel. It's almost
there
same.
is there
fine.
is a part of the report
Yeah,
where Heidelberg also alleges SEBI to be complicit, right?
yep. That's another question actually coming up,
Right.
but yeah, please go ahead.
So the moment it has made that brazen kind of a statement, I think it will gel well for the Indian giants to be together in that sense, because that's the only logic I get. But yes, forward business, I think it's all about business as well. They will manage how they're going ahead. Coming to that Mauritius part, I was just scrolling through to read and find a lot of investment from Mauritius is into India, including NDTV and other places as well, earlier as well. And I think, like Bell said, that if you have a business proposition, obviously you will have business accounts and everything else, and plus minus whatever the tax benefits happen to any firm. Tell me which US major does not have such kind of accounts all over the world? You have to operate. You'll have to fund it accordingly. Bell, you're saying something.
If we talk about PE funds like Sequoia and all, so they also invest through Mauritius and India. They have their funds
Absolutely.
in Mauritius. So if you talk about Flipkart also, they had also the investments coming from Tiger or someone like that through Mauritius or Singapore only.
ये पता क्या होता है वरुण? ये जो तड़का लगा के जब आता है ना, it comes to India from a foreign research report. You know,
Correct.
they won't even believe today business standard, because business standard may be looking a little more suave. So ये तड़का report, 5 people company against Adani Group, it's a good report when it comes. Facts, yes, I'm still saying there may be some facts to refine the systems. There's no problem with that. but that comes from open source knowledge, which anybody has across the world. And it doesn't take 2 years of research to go through that. It takes 2 years to get more and more clowns coming up to you and giving you something. So that is the part which is much more intriguing to me today, because ये तो सब कुछ खुले में है भाई, सब कुछ है, everything is available today in finance. You
That's
can
what
take out from any company,
exactly. That's
right?
what
It doesn't take 2 years, and then when you put the tadka, that is the problem. You
correct.
know, you trying to give a quote, he has got history of criminal offenses. That was there when Adani started in 1993, or he started some other company when he acquired Holcim to 1.5 years back. Those things were on on the showcase earlier, right? The debt being taken from the market is known. He talked about that lady Suchita Dalal, who also broke some other news long time back in Indian history. They are known, right? So these facts are known. The credit rating issue, the previous issue of the part of EBITDA of those two smaller companies, transmission and power, is known. So I don't think so those numbers came from anywhere else. And in all those cases, the company was consulted, doubts were clarified, clarifications were taken. This report somehow has just shot up. It has not even gone back to Adani in at any point of time to say this is what our research is saying. Do you have something to say? Right? So any financial disclosure like this, which you're coming upfront, and when something is hypothetical, when something is hearsay, when for something you don't have a evidence currently, how could you just flash it? Your report is not 100% accurate. So I'm talking about the inaccurate part, which will be exposed. Why should you do it without consulting that company? Is it allowed in US just to make some report, consult 5 more people, and say, oh, that chap was in jail 3 years back? So what?
Here it is I will say here it is possible for sure, Colonel, because that's how they can even release your private chats and whatnot in a
No,
matter
that's
of like
okay.
this.
Private
Yeah,
chats and everything is evidence, right? In some sense,
yeah, yeah.
right? But it has to be, So when you are an auditor, when you are a researcher on financial matters of a company, I have not heard of a case when you have not gone back to the company to seek any kind of a clarification before you publish, because you are not sure,
Yeah,
right?
that
How are you so sure? You going to stitch the story about somebody's arrest some years ago to this case. How can you say Mauritius and it is scam laden? I mean,
can I, can I be the devil's advocate here myself right now, Colonel? Just for the sake of argument, okay? See, it is not like I was mentioning to even Kanan, right? This is not like a mom pop shop, right? कि
right?
छोटी सी कंपनी है उसके अगेंस्ट हम कोई भी इन्वेस्टिगेशन का नाम देके रिपोर्ट देके डाल देंगे. This is Adani Group for
No, no, no. You look at
no, no,
the headline. I
yeah,
don't remember it. It uses the word like conning somebody, right?
The biggest scandal, the biggest con in the world,
Yes,
something.
yes.
correct. So
So
that's where
it's a
I'm
very
the
structured report, and you go by. I'm telling you now. Now still about 10 hours to go. It will start.
correct. It will.
From Sood Boot, Adani, all these words will be there tomorrow in the parliament.
Yeah,
Somebody will try and do a straight. And Bahl says, the opposition may not have that kind of a strength to do it, but halla machane mein kya problem hai?
correct. No, the devil's
And you
advocate
look at
point that
the
I was.
Indian, no, look at the Indian people. At least
Yeah,
Bahl knows the subject. At least I
correct.
can make an effort to read. You
Yeah,
look at people who are going to vote in the next 1 year.
correct.
They have been given that filmy dialogue. Don came from Mauritius with black money.
So yeah, hear me out. So the devil's advocate kind of perspective that I was bringing about is this is not a mom pop shop. कोई छोटी सी दुकान नहीं है, छोटी company नहीं है. This is not even a mid size. This is the biggest company. We're talking about a billionaire on the list of world's most rich, the most richest person, and the amount of money, power, influence these guys have. Putting something against them by any company, be it Hindenburg or any other research, I mean, there has to be some kind of backing to them that they had the guts to do this against Adani. Why not do it against certain smaller companies? Because my point is, if they are putting yourself at stake, you will be
You
finished.
see, no,
This
no,
is
no, no, no.
against Adani.
No.
Yeah.
They won't be finished.
Okay.
Can you imagine any such report, even if 50% factual, doesn't go through Adani, Reliance, Amazon, or anybody else, if it is the big five of the world?
Yeah,
Any credit rating company worth its salt will not show it once and get a clarification,
that's
right?
yeah, that's a different
Now,
perspective.
the issues, when you go through this report, say you're saying Mauritius, right? There has been a clarification midway last year by none other than the Adani Group and the Adani chairman himself, right? So these are news bits which are picked up and again repackaged into this report. What is new?
Correct. That I agree.
43 crores of investment from Mauritius into India. Doesn't Hindenburg know this?
Yeah,
They know, but they're playing on the story of last year in which there was an acquisition made against this conglomerate and talked about Mauritius, which was clarified. Similarly, would be the case for all these conjunctures.
very nice.
And
Yeah,
the question is, what does a behemoth like a Adani, Reliance, or actually even in US, they can do it to anybody small or big. What do you do sitting from India to a company of 5 people sitting in New York and they call themselves researchers? What do you do to them?
yeah, that's
Can Adani get back 46 crores from this motley people? Whereas through their short selling, betting, they have earned their millions. That person who runs this company, his net worth is in a few 200 plus millions, right? So how does that money come? That money comes through this source of getting down somebody. So a small company has been best used by people behind it in whichever part of the world and also in India to get back at a bigger company and the economy of the country and get this company down by 40,000 crores today.
yeah. All right.
So
Valid point.
this is the
Yeah,
way you use the
sure.
cheapest weapon to strike,
Okay.
and that
I'll be
cheapest
back.
weapon tomorrow may not exist.
Yeah.
He may just say that the 3 researchers who were there with me have left. I don't know where they've gone.
I don't think they will go
No,
anywhere, or
no.
they can
From
go
this,
anywhere. They will.
across
Yeah.
Atlantic, it is possible. Within the US, you
True.
try doing it.
Yeah. 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 True.
There is a judge who has passed the ruling, right, 2 weeks back on two basic primary conditions. They have rubbished the Hindenburg report and call it a little malicious. You imagine how much of wherewithal will it take even for Adani to get it done to a Hindenburg sitting in US? It's not easy.
All right. I'm gonna quickly go through last few minutes. Don't you find it strange that no concerning authority like SEBI or the government have issued any statements? So, what does it like again, Karan, from your example, from your experience, in such a scenario, what is SEBI's role? Shouldn't they come out, or should they have already come out around this, or what do you think?
See, as far as the auditor issue is concerned, and all these things are concerned, these like whoever has been jailed, whoever has been appointed as directors,
Okay, looks like Karan, you're frozen again. Um, okay,
so I
okay, you're frozen, Karan, and now we can start to hear you back.
yeah, am I audible and visible
Yes,
now?
now you are. Now you are.
Okay, so yeah, I'll just start over. So,
Sure.
as far as this auditor issue is concerned, and when Morning Context came up with the story, I thoroughly checked that there's no provision against having young CAs on board, right? So there's no problem with that. If we talk about people being jailed in the past around cases of money laundering and all those things. So again, while these companies came into an IPO, the SEBI knew it, right? So and this is legal because in India, and I think if I'm please correct me if I'm wrong, people stand their cases against each other, right? And like uh, okay, I'll skip saying that, but you see there are some certain times when you would see that certain cases are open up just for someone's vendetta, or someone has to recover something, right? So it might have happened that way as well, right? So SEBI understands all these things, and this is absolutely normal for companies in India or even in the US with people having cases getting listed and coming up with IPOs and all those things. As far as this round tripping thing is concerned, definitely I think SEBI has opened up already on this thing. that we'll come up with an investigation around this. So I think they're doing the job pretty well, and maybe if they can, ask questions, ask the right kind of questions, then we'll have much better clarity around that.
Got it. Next question is, how important is PE ratio while valuing AEL?
So this is an infra business, right? So see, in the initial years when the a lot of infra investment is happening, there's a lot of depreciation that hits, and the revenues come after a few years when the contract gets built and ultimately revenue starts flowing in, right? So PE ratio is not very relevant in infra companies. I can say EV by EBITDA is a much better metric in valuing these companies, and cash profit to EV or something like that, some other ratio, like not just PE ratio, but PE ratio is not a very good metric in valuing infra companies, I would say.
Got it. All right. So earlier part, Kanan, you also mentioned about the Nikola stock, right? And how the report was made around it. So the question he's asking is, could you please explain what happened to that stock, or what was the conclusion of that battle, if you remember? Or
So yeah, if I can look at the price chart, that stock went up from $10 in 15 by it was around $10 as of the COVID fall, right? And after the COVID, after this lockdown and everything happened in March in India, this stock rose up to around $60, $65.9. Now currently it's trading at $2.62. What my understanding is that it was looked upon as a competitor of Tesla, and that kind of automobile manufacturer. But Tesla, Hindenburg Research had come up with a report which said that this all is shady, it's all a sham, there's no revenue, something like that, and all those things. And then the stock went tumbling down.
yeah, got it. All right. And maybe let me see. There was one more. How can we mock? Yeah, so that's another. I don't know. It's a statement or a question, but I'll just flash it. Tesla came up with some revolutionary technology. What does Adani has that can take that price to that kind of extent? Is what they are uh, asking or pointing out. And maybe
Can you
this.
repeat this question?
Yeah,
Didn't get you.
I think this is more like a statement that they're trying to make. When we were talking about that increase in valuation and all that stuff, that at least Tesla had some new technology. Tesla made something new versus what the guy is
Yeah,
saying is,
I'll counter that. I'll counter
yeah,
that. So say whatever you have to say, but this group is proving some kind of executional capabilities, right? And if you have to say it that way, let's say it that way. If they have a good relationship with the government, then with the budget where we have around 5.5 lakh crores reserved for infrastructure sector, or 10 lakhs in the 22 budget, let's see what happens tomorrow. But if we have that kind of budgets allocated for infrastructure, then what's the harm? So definitely they have something different, right? And as far as the different thing was concerned in Tesla, still it plummeted by 75% from the top, right? Yeah, so
good
that
point.
is the way.
Yeah, I'll take Colonel on that as well, and
Two
maybe after
things,
that we'll try to summarize.
two things here. You know, Tesla has kept its patent open, right? It is not patented many things. It said anybody can make it. So I don't see a greater delta there only by the name of technology to be earned there. But the scales of operations of, in infra and other segments of this company, which we're talking about, are humongous. Secondly, SEBI has already probably contacted Crystal Limited. That's my understanding of my read right now. And this has happened a couple of days back. And they have taken the view. I'm not too sure what will play out because all these rating agencies are currently quiet to the media. And it may also be a case because SEBI is mentioned there. It's a chief regulatory organization of this country in terms of financial matters. Maybe it also takes a step forward, and maybe it is also contemplating along with the legal system of India to take on this particular case. And I'm quite sure behind the scenes there would be something generated even diplomatically to understand why and how it's been done, and there will be some inputs there as well.
Got it. All right. Before we end this, maybe Colonel, I'll start with you. Just to kind of summarize and look at it, you've already mentioned tomorrow, maybe in about 10 hours or maybe less than 9 hours now, we'll hear a lot, about Adani and whatnot. But if you again look at from your perspective and from how the world is looking at, what's your perspective? What's your take on it? And based on what Kanan was able to explain and make us all understand, where do you see this going from here?
See, my perspective is very clear. There has been a spate of allegations and factual, forays made by Hindenburg. The factual forays are based on open source, knowledge. The other part has been made as conjunctures based on inputs of yesteryears, trying to, mop it up into a different kind of a report. And I think it is but prudent that behind the scenes, it is taken up diplomatically to understand how and how it was done, because that company still is answerable to U.S. Regulators and law. There are methods to draw this information without going into a legal suit at that level. I hope that should happen. The second is the legal framework, which is open to both the Adani Group as also when you see the legal part constructed with the SEBI and whatever is required to be done, they should do it. Because there is no case, just by Hindenburg saying, okay, let's come at, you come at me legally and I will draw more information from you. What you can draw is only what's in the books. What you can draw is what is in the process. What you can draw is what is in the business compendiums and SOPs. You can't draw conjunctures. When you come to the finality and when you understand that how three or four major companies of Mauritius are invested in the Adani Group or in India, then you will understand the Mauritius connection better. And you need to understand before you make comments. Because, to a layman in India, offshore accounts always, smacks of some kind of a scam. That may not be the case. The second part is, going back into historical perspectives and making allegations about personal lives of people, relatives. I don't think that's going to augur well, because that person called Mr. Vinod Adani has been officially called out to say has got no business. I think last year sometime a proper statement was issued by this group. So I don't think so. It is so easy to go into the past and just do mudslinging. So I think at some point of time, Heidenberg should be asked internally in the US, the background, the limited partners being supported through this short sale, so that we understand where the enemies lie. Because it's not a simple case of anybody getting interested in Adani Group and for 2 years trying to get a report curated. And last but not the least is what's going to happen in next 9.5 hours. And I think that is going to be I just hope they don't derail the budget session based on these things, and the government should be very very cautious that a private dealing of an entity, SEBI involved, is not for the government to talk, especially at the beginning of the budget session. So let's see how that goes politically with it. And coming to the spate of the financial domain, I think there has to be a little bit of more transparency, both on the Heidenberg side to reveal everything, how they got it, and also the Adani Group beyond the rebuttal. If something has to be given, they should also be upfront in that.
Great. Thank you, Colonel. And so, Kanan, your perspective, and please go ahead.
So I think already all these points have been spoken. There are certain questions which seem, absurd to me, like the ones that we were reading, and then there are certain questions which can be answered. If there's nothing wrong, then I think that can be answered pretty well. So yeah, let's see how it goes about, and I'm sure a legal battle is there to come, and we might have to make more podcasts on this.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm really looking forward to that, and especially tomorrow, the big budget. After that, all this back and forth that will happen around this. So, guys, for all of you, if you haven't already done that, you already know Colonel RDX and you follow him on Twitter. But for Kanan, this is the handle. I'm just flashing it on the screen. Please
Thank you.
follow his tweets. I've started to love what he writes and how he writes, and people are trying to copy him and without giving him any credit as well. So that was another funny kind of thing that happened. This is our social media world. This is how it works, and people were commenting there as well that this is how some of the handles operate, but not Kanan's handle. So follow him. I'm sure there'll be a lot of wonderful tweets, information shared tomorrow after the budget, and especially on this Hindenburg. I call it a Hindenburg because this was hidden somewhere and it came out all of a sudden. So, looking forward to more of our conversations, Kanan. It was really a pleasure, I'll say. And as always, Colonel, thank you so much, for bringing a different perspective as well. And I'm really looking forward to more of such sessions in the near future again. And good luck to both Hindenburg and Adani Group. May the best man win is all I can say. But let's keep this country, this India, this thing a little away from all of this. Let them fight the legal battle, because if one has done wrong, then that person needs to be brought to justice as well. So let the best man win. Thank you once again, both of you, and hope
Thank
we were
you.
able to make a little clarity around this report. But if you have any more questions, please drop them in the chat, and I will definitely look it up, and I'm going to tag Kanan on Twitter and Colonel as well, so that they can respond as well. Thank you once again. Good night to India,
Take care.
and
Jai Hind.
Jai
Good
Hind, Jai
night,
Bharat, and
Jai.
yep. See you guys later. Thank you. Bye.